I wanted to do an analysis of Plato's worldview with you. In order to follow along, what I'd like you to do is to either download or open up on another screen the worksheet that's found on under September 10, Ancient Greek Worldview. That's in our Brightspace page. So as you scroll down to September 10, Ancient Greek Worldview, and you click on that title, this worksheet should pop up. And I'm on the second page of that worksheet, Plato's Worldview. What I want you to notice about Plato's worldview is that it's divided into two realms. When you think about Plato's answer to the question, what kind of world do we live in? He would say that we live in a world that has two distinct dimensions, one that you can see, one that you can't see, one that's material, one that's not material, one that's invisible. But it's also real to Plato. It's as real as the things you touch. And you saw in the analogy of the cave, his idea that reality is like a shadow. That is, the pure idea, the pure form, exists in the heavenly realm for Plato, and that what you see is an embodiment of an expression of that pure form in concrete ways in our daily life. The error for Plato, and what we would need to be educated about, is to see that what you see is not all that there is. That when you look at a chair, for example, I trust that maybe you're watching this sitting on a chair, and you think about the particular chair you're sitting on. Maybe it's an office chair with wheels underneath, or maybe it's a desk chair with four solid wood legs, or maybe it's more like a sofa that's wider, or like a love seat. And then maybe you're sitting on a stool, a narrow round seat, no back, and four legs or three legs. Now, what Plato would ask is this: what makes that chair a chair? And if you reflect on it, the particular chair you're sitting in is the concretization or the realization of an idea that the inventor or creator had in their mind. They thought of a design for a chair. They thought of how it should be structured. They may even consult an engineer in terms of how to determine its adequate strength and so forth. And then they built this chair the way it is. That's an expression of an idea that was in the mind of the engineer or of the designer or of the creator of that chair. What makes that chair a chair? The idea of a chair. That's what Plato says. What makes a chair? What makes any part of reality is the pure idea of that reality, and that exists in heaven, Plato says. Well, we can apprehend that reality, we can come to know that reality by using reason. Reason is the avenue for Plato for us to think into and actually see what's true, what's ultimately true. The person who came out of the cave and was able to see that what the cave people were looking at on the wall was just a shadow created by a fire, saw when he got outside of the cave that the same thing was happening in reality. That is, that the sun was giving the light to everything, and that's what enabled us to see it. Now, for Plato, when he encountered a tree, that the reality was some pure idea of a tree behind that would exist in the heavenlies. So there's two realms in the world. He's made a bifurcation, and you'll see that on the worksheet that I prepared. There's a realm of the pure form or pure ideas, and then there's the material world. And these two make up the whole of reality. That what you see in the material world exists because of the ideal world. Now, what you want to do is to be free from the constraints of the material world and live in the pure world of pure ideas. That's where the gods exist for Plato. That's where truth exists. That's where justice is found. That's where absolute beauty is seen. It's as if beauty, as we saw in the dialogue about the chariot and charioteer, was the spark in reality that helps us see that there's something beyond. that when you apprehend beauty, your heart lifts up and you want to see what's behind it, what's beyond it. And it's a marvelous picture that has some real resemblance to some things that we might think within the Christian tradition. That when we look at reality, our heart, in seeing its beauty, order, whatever it might be, will lift up to God, right, who made the creator. And you see some of that similarity. So if we compare Plato's worldview to the creation, fall, redemption, new creation worldview, I want to think about how is it similar and how is it different? Well, I thought of at least two ways that it's similar, and you might have other things that you would like to add. But one is the need for redemption. That is, that when we're living in this world, living in the material world for Plato, education is the avenue for us to become really real, really human, to fully express our humanity. We'll use our reason and we'll see the pure ideas. There's a need for redemption. There's a need to be set free from our bondage to the material world. And the other thing that you'll find that's similar is the importance of perspective. That is, how we see things shapes how we act. And that was so prevalent in that story of the two horses and the charioteer. You know, when the one horse perceived beauty and truth, it wanted to go up into the heavenlies. When the other horse saw, you know, the earthly desires, which Plato would talk about, eating and begetting, you know, and it's about food and sex, and you're drawn down to those. And both of those are found in the human heart or in the human mind for Plato. And reason is trying to balance those two out so that we can, you know, ride our chariot successfully through life. Now, the similarity is the importance of perspective. What you see shapes how you act. When you see the beauty of this world, and you might want to be drawn toward it, it will shape how you're conducting yourself. For Plato, that would lead to some virtue that you're going to develop. You know, to aspire for the truth. And you might only be committed to speaking the truth always, like Socrates was. And if you're drawn to the other desires, you're gonna, you know, think about a bacchanalian feast. You know, we're gonna drink and we're gonna, you know, tell stories, and there'll be a lot of sex going on. You know, all of this stuff. So how we think shapes how we act. Now, there's some similarities. Now, the huge differences, of course. And from a philosophical perspective, we'd say the basic difference is in cosmology, that is, the view of the universe. I mean, Plato's working with a dualistic or a two-layer understanding of the universe. Christians will see, I think from the creation, fall, redemption, new creation perspective, that there's one universe that God created, and that same universe fell into sin, or was affected by sin, I should say. And then that same universe is the one that Christ came to redeem. And then that same universe is what's going to be made new in the new creation. There's not two worlds, but one world. Whereas for Plato, you know, the world is divided into these two parts, what's hidden and what's revealed, what's hidden and what's seen. Plato raises the question that's often been discussed in philosophical circles, I think it's just for fun now, but it's an epistemological question. And that is, if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there when it falls, will it make a sound? Now, what it brings to light is, you know, that reality has its own, what comes as a question involved in that, you know, analogy or that story about the tree falling in the woods, does it make a sound if no one's there to hear it? Is there an objective reality, or is it only subjective experiences? For Plato, the objective reality is a realm of pure forms or pure ideas. Now, for a person who's listening and saying, you know, what's real is only what's subjectively encountered, it doesn't make a sound because there's no one there to hear it. Could be a response that a materialist might make, or someone like that. But I would say from a creation, fall, redemption, new creation perspective is that if that tree falls, it's going to make a sound. Sound is produced by airwaves that are moving as a result from motion of other things, and they hit your ear, and we perceive it as a sound, but those airwaves are still moving with the same sort of frequency. And I believe that's so because I believe God created this world, and we can know that world as an objective entity that has its own existence. It isn't dependent on me for its existence, but I am dependent on it for my knowledge of it in this world. So on one level, this dualistic worldview, that's a big difference between the creation, fall, redemption perspective and Plato's perspective. And another is that redemption is not just knowledge. For Plato, the redemption that comes through education, through teaching people to see what's true, to follow that Socratic method and to evaluate and look carefully. And as we do, we'll see what's really real. But for a Christian, redemption is not just about knowledge. It's about faith in Jesus Christ. Now, there are some things that we know about God, we know about this world, that come as an expression of faith. But faith is not fundamentally knowledge. It's knowledge and trust. It's giving oneself to what God has shown us of himself. And that's how redemption is accomplished, through God's work in Christ Jesus, and we accept it in our heart and our life, and we live into it day by day. So that's a contrast with Plato's worldview and the creation, fall, redemption worldview. Maybe there's other things that you thought of, and if you did, feel free to send me an email. Are there some other differences you saw, or some other similarities that you saw? Well, thanks for paying attention. Thanks for being with me, and God's blessing to you as you reflect further on the Greek worldview.